Today is Tuesday, August 6th, and we are coming off a severe market sell-off from yesterday on Monday. And it's kind of an interesting thing that's going on, because I thought that after watching some of the talking heads on CNBC, listening to Spaces on X, and talking to some other people, that there would be some experts that could give us a really good idea of what was going on. And unfortunately, there really aren't any. I haven't heard any good explanations. I've heard theories, which are quite interesting. One of which is all this had to do with Japan and some unwinding of trades in Japan, and that we're going to bounce right back. I've heard that, I guess that's probably the main thing that I've heard, is that somehow this sell-off was related to Japan. Now, I've heard other stories going along with it. For example, Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway has sold 50% of its stake in Apple, interestingly enough. An economic advisor for the Biden administration has resigned yesterday, and of course you hear everybody saying, well, it's great timing and all. It is interesting timing, but the explanation is that he's going to work on the Kamala Harris campaign. But I really haven't heard, and then I hear these stories about VIX and the volatility index, whether it's up, down, sideways, or whatever, and whether or not it has anything to do with what's going on in the market. I did hear on CNBC some people say, these are traders on Wall Street, saying it's not a big deal, it's going to bounce right back, and others that are saying there's more systemic things that are going on in the market. So no one really knows. Now it's 8:40 in the morning on Tuesday. We're not going to obviously find out until the market opens again. But then again, a lot of people, once again, have their opinions on what's going to happen. I do know this, and by the time I release this video, the market's going to be closed today. So keep that in mind while you're listening to this, because I really don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not sure what's going on in the Asia markets either. I think there was a big bounce from the Japan market coming back again. So that may, in all likelihood, cause a huge run-up in the market today in the United States. And typically that's what I see. But every time I make the call, it's always the opposite of what I say. I mean, if there's really an inverse Jim Cramer, I'm that guy. So anyway, I think there's probably a good possibility that the market is going to bounce back. However, there is a very concerning thing that I see in the market that is very similar to what happened in 2008. And it has to do with over-the-counter derivatives. And to explain it as simply as I possibly can, over-the-counter derivatives are basically bets or insurance policies where one bank or entity creates an agreement with another entity, and one takes one side of the bet and the other takes the other side of the bet. They were originally invented to offset risk, but as with anything, it transformed and grew into what's considered a dark market, an unregulated market. And back in the 90s, this started kind of falling apart, and these dark markets these trades started unwinding and having problems where, because so many of these bets were going wrong, AIG and Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, they didn't have enough cash reserves to pay off the bets that they took. And a lot of other banks had, insurance companies had the same issue, and it just got worse and worse to the point where the government had to come in and bail them all out. And those were considered toxic assets. All these bad bets that they made. And there was one person, Brooksley Bourne, who was a regulator. I won't go into too much detail on that, but she wanted, back in the 90s, she wanted to regulate that market. But Alan Greenspan and three other guys, Larry Summers and Robert Rubin, and the head of the SEC at the time, said, no, you can't regulate this, and ultimately shut her up. And now we see the result of it. Alan Greenspan admits that he's wrong, and you can look in also to the detail of these four guys. They all have something in common, which again I won't go into right now. It's a separate subject. The point of me bringing this up is that dark market of derivatives was never really regulated. So back in 2008, the government basically bought all those assets, or took those assets off the books of these companies, and created what's called a moral hazard, because without letting these other banks go under, unlike a Lehman Brothers, which they did let go, they didn't let the other ones go. And so the moral hazard really was, well, if we can get away with this once and the government's going to bail us out, we can do it again, because we know the government's going to bail us out again. So fast forward to now, 2024, those derivatives have grown to what some are saying, and I don't know if this is true, but some are saying, into a $1,000,000,000,000 market. That's 1,000 trillion. Now farther back in 2008-9, it was a several hundred trillion, I think, at the time. Now it's grown into what some say again, a $1,000,000,000 market, or approaching that. And you have at least 25 banks that are involved in this, including very well-known household names like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Bank of America, etc., etc. And what's even more concerning is that not only is this market super, super huge, but then these same banks, just like back in 08 and 09, have very little capital reserves. So we have a systemic risk situation again now, which is a much larger market. Very little capital reserves. And so the question is, can and will this happen again? And I think a lot of people would agree that yes, it definitely could happen again. So my concern is, after discussing all of these things that have been going on in the market, is this the beginnings of a rumbling in the market where some are saying, we have this systemic risk, we see these dark markets again, and it's happening again? I mean, we had, for different reasons, a few banks go under, mainly because of mark-to-market accounting and the bonds that they bought, the long-term bonds they had, and the higher interest rates have caused problems with them. So it's different than before. But you still have that looming market, that looming derivatives market that isn't going away. And with that moral hazard that I explained before, can that add fuel to the fire, and will that unwind again, and will that explode again, causing major meltdowns in the market? And in this case, the meltdowns now are, is that something that a government can bail out this time? There was a few $1 trillion last time. Now you're talking about in the quadrillions. We're already printing money out of control, and I think we're still reeling from the bailout, the original bailout in 08 and 09. I really think that we're in a really bad situation right now, and it could very well just be a drop in the market. It pops right back up. Who knows? But again, that market is still there. Those derivatives are still there. Those trades are still there. The risk on the books is still there. That's not going away. And with Warren Buffett unloading Apple like he did, maybe it's nothing. Maybe he feels that Apple is just not being innovative right now. They're really not doing a whole lot. It was a pretty large position. I don't know if he's done anything differently with another position. I really don't know. But it is interesting, again, the timing of it. So anyway, let me know what you think. I will be doing a more in-depth video on the derivative situation, because I think that's very important for a lot of people to learn, because with all the information that we get every single day, everybody, including myself, we're all guilty of this. You start to forget history. You forget what's happened in the past. And when you forget all of these things that have happened in the past, then we allow those things to repeat and happen again. And I'm afraid, it's inevitable that this derivatives market's going to blow up. It's just, I just don't know what they're going to do about it, how it's going to, what's going to happen. Because it's obvious that the government's not going to do a thing to try and regulate it. They're not going to try and rein it in. They're just going to let everything explode. These are the incompetent buffoons that we have running things. They're not going to do anything about it. So a lot of people have to get hurt, unfortunately, and that's what's going to happen. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you do know about this derivatives market and what happened in 08 and 09. I'm curious to know how many people actually know about this, and what your thoughts are. And do you think we're going to have a repeat of that again? And also be sure that you subscribe to these videos so you know when the new ones come out, and when it'll also let you know when I go live as well. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.